Hello again, it's time for an update on my chemistry game, which from now on will be called Albion. So let's start by explaining this name. It comes from the old word for anything mysterious and scientific, the word al. You can also see it in words like alchemistry. The V in it doesn't really have a meaning, it's just there to represent the square root. And the last part of the name is the ion, which is a chemical bond in between a metal and a non-metal that happens due to the movement of electrons. Okay, now let's get into the changes to the game. If you watched my first devlog, you'll know that there is an object in this game that contains all the chemical values. I finally made a visualization of these values. And to make this visualization, I needed to make a new interface. I made it using these blue colors because those are usually the colors I use for anything technology-wise in this game. Now that I have a machine that can show all these values, it's a good time to actually hook it up to the machine from the first devlog, which basically just turns any object into its chemical value. I also needed to find a fitting font, but after a while of searching, I just gave up and put this one in for testing purposes. Since I made all the values be tied up to their chemical names, I can now sort them in different ways, from biggest to smallest, alphabetically, and so on. This was also the time I realized it doesn't really make much sense for this machine to only exist inside of the house. So just as I did with the chest, I made it be able to be placeable outside. If you're automating something, it would always be nice to instantly turn anything you're sending into this machine into its chemical values and then into the main machine. This also did lead to an interesting problem, since both the chests and this machine had the same sprite. So I used the same small item sprite for both of them, which led to this issue. I forgot I coded my code to work with sprites for some reason. But yeah, a quick fix later and we're back on track on developing this feature. A new issue with the laws of physics occurred when I was trying to move this machine outside, and that's that you shouldn't really be able to just teleport these chemicals into the main machine from just anywhere. It makes sense if you're inside the house, since they're sort of connected, but when you're outside, you should probably have to connect it with some sort of like pipes so that the chemicals can go from the machine to the home to the pipeline. So I started working on these pipes, which I just copied the code from the conveyor belts. I honestly also just copied their sprites and turned them blue. The chemicals wouldn't have any cool animations of going through, at least not yet, unlike the items on those conveyor belts. I did struggle for a while, but I got it working at the end, and now you can place it down, connect it, and send it to the main machine, just like planned. I also, at this point, remembered that I had gasoline pools on the map. So after remembering those, I made the pipes be able to take gasoline from the little ponds and run it through the machine, giving you C8H18. But since issues have a way of following new features, I realized this was one of my biggest mistakes. Since now I had to figure out how much gasoline is in one of these pools. Now I had no idea how to do this. Well, actually that's a lie. I did know what I had to do, but I also knew how much time it would take. So here we go. When a gasoline lake is created, it's expanded in all kinds of directions. Up, down, left, right, everywhere. After it's done expanding, we find its middle point by taking the one of the most rights and one of the most left points and finding their central value. We do the same thing for the up and down points. After that, we can set them into a for loop, from which we can search for how many of the sprites are full, half full, 3/4 full, and so on. After which, I use some calculations and the player's side to figure out that the depth of the lake is about 0.4 meters. Even though I can't even explain my process anymore. Knowing that the depth is a bit bigger than the side-to-side expansion of one of the sprites, we can approximate that the side-to-side is about 0.1 meters. From that, with some calculations, we can figure out that the volume of one of these lake sprites is 0.004 meters cubed. Now we can just times that by the amount of sprites and find the volume of the full lake. But we're not done just yet. currently we only have the volume, but what we actually need is the mass, which we can get from the gasoline's density, which is 742.9 kilograms per meter cube, meaning that one of our sprites is equal to approximately 3 kilograms of gasoline. And you'd think that we'd be done after this. You'd think it's over now, but we still need to calculate their molecular mass, which is the mass divided by the mass of the atoms that create the moleculi, giving us the final result of 26 moles. Jeez, that's finally done. Okay, while I was working on this feature, I was also thinking of a way that the player could break objects. I didn't want them to have the classic tools like in every other game, so I thought, why not make something inspired from Astroneer? In this game, you can only be away from your base for a short bit before you start running out of oxygen. So how do you explore further from your base? Well, that's simple. You place these wires that you can connect to your base that then lead the oxygen to further places. So what I thought is that the player could only destroy things when he was close to his home, and the little blob thing on his head helped a lot with the visualization of the idea. So I got right into making a line renderer, which was very finicky at first. I spent a while getting the laser just right, and I'm still consistently changing it, but it's fine. And finally, the player has the ability of destroying objects. It only took us 3 devlogs to get here. Now we only needed to get these wire poles that would allow the player to destroy objects even if he was away from home. So I jumped into Libre Sprite and made a crystal pole, which is the wire pole I was talking about. Now connecting one of these to the player and to the house was an easy job. Just connect the line to one of the positions and the other to the other position, and that's it. But as soon as I added more than one, everything went to mayhem. It started breaking. I mean, look at this. Not just that, but they should also be connected to one another, which was a story for itself. The way I ended up making them work is by expanding a circle collider from their position outwards, and the first crystal they would have touched, or if they touched the house, is the one they would connect to. After a while of fighting, you are now able to break items even if you are farther from your home. Finally, this devlog is turning into a new feature and then a bunch of errors. That's not a good trend. Okay, it's finally time for the feature you guys have voted for. And from the 3 features you had the option to vote from last times, you voted for currency. Now, I said in my last devlog that I would maybe make it like there'd be an alien species that you now needed to trade with, learn about their ways and their money. But somebody in my Discord told me that it doesn't really fit into the you're all alone aesthetic of the game, which I was totally going for. So I had to come up with a new idea, which I did, and here it is. Since somebody was here before you, this is already a part of the story, they have to have traded with another species on this planet. But since they were seriously lazy and didn't want to spend all day selling items to these unknown creatures, he went ahead and automated the system. The same system that still works and that our player can now purchase items from. But that also means that they need the currency, called Zoopies. Yeah, I know that's a very classy name, but it's a placeholder until I find a better one. Or, you know, it might just stick in the time. The way the older generation programmed the shop to work was by displaying the item's name and price, using the same font again, at the top, and at the bottom is how much cash you currently have. And in the middle is just a representation of the item that if you click on, you can purchase it. And after you purchase an item, after a random amount of time, the shop will reset with a new item. This was a pretty interesting to program, and I feel like as I'm starting to develop more of these features, the more and more stuff I need to make new stuff, which I guess is normal. Okay, now that we gone through everything new in this devlog, it's time to give you your 3 new options for this devlog. The first one is going to be a classic one, a day-night cycle. The day can maybe last longer than on Earth, Or maybe we could even connect it to the shop that resets every day. The second idea is a portal gun. This is a very endgame item. The reason I'm giving you guys the option for voting for it now is because I honestly want to mess around with portals a lot. So this would be a real relief for me after working on one of the other features. And the third and final feature you guys can vote for are cosmetics. They're not that necessary for the game's development, but they're a nice break from all this mainstream content. Well, that would be it for this video. You guys are free to leave now. But for the people who want to stay and hear me blabble like I do at every single one of my devlogs, I wanted to thank you all for watching the video and all of these devlogs. They take a while to make, especially since school started and it's been taking my life over. But it's definitely fun to see just how this game is going and to just check one of my older devlogs and see where I was in like a year or a month or any amount of time. If you could press the like and subscribe button, that'd be amazing. It helps me knowing that you guys actually enjoy this content, and it lets YouTube know to promote my videos more, which I guess is a plus and plus, right? The next episode should be coming out pretty soon, so I hope you'll stick around with that. I will see you next time. See ya!